Today, President Trump will address the nation following an attack by Iran Tuesday, where over a dozen missiles were launched toward two bases in Iraq, targeting U.S. troops. So far, we are unaware of any American casualties. For more on this, we want to welcome Don Bramer, former intelligence officer and senior interrogator in Iraq with the combined Joint Special Operations Task Force and founder of Bramer Group. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Stephanie.
We're following this news very closely as tensions have escalated following those missiles launched by Iran. This, of course, comes after the U.S. strike that took out the top Iranian general Qasem Soleimani last week. Now there have been multiple threats of retaliation, including a statement from a top Iraqi militia commander who wrote on Twitter, quote, "Because Iraqis are brave and zealous, the response will not be any less than that of Iran. That is a promise." What is your reaction to this, and how should the U.S. respond to these additional threats?
Well, one of the things I think Zarid Sharif text also that this was the end of operations, that they do not want war with the United States. So I think these attacks, these rockets, were more symbolic than anything. You know, the Al Asad Air Base has not changed much since I was there in the 2000s. It's about 25 square miles of space. So it's very large. It's a lot of open area. And with these type of missiles, you know, it's easy to fire that much armaments into the area and not hit targets. These type of missiles are very chaotic. They don't have a set range of where they're going to go. So that was a gamble, but I think the fact that we have no casualties, no loss of life, no injuries, was just, it allowed Iran the opportunity to save face, to retaliate, but also prove the point that they do not want to escalate this, because it's actually a war that they just cannot afford.
Right. The Pentagon released a statement saying they will take all necessary measures to protect and defend U.S. personnel, partners, and allies in the region. How could this situation escalate if the U.S. chooses to defend itself?
Well, I think one of the things we have to do here, Stephanie, is measure our response. You know, much like when the Iranians shot down the drone late last year, you know, there was no loss of life. And the right thing, the prudent thing by the president was to not respond with a retaliatory strike. If that's the case in this situation where there's no loss, I think we need to take this as a very calculated measure, not to escalate, allow this to de-escalate, and similar to the way President Reagan did in 1988 when the Iranians fired against the United States and were mining our ships, and then they responded and we did not then, and things started to calm down. You have to be very calculated. If you know, allow them the opportunity to show face with their own people and see if there's a way to back this down a bit.
Throughout President Trump's tenure, we know that he and other officials in the Trump administration have said they're going to continue this maximum pressure campaign on Iran. We know that with sanctions and other sorts. Now, the president has defended the drone strike that killed Soleimani by saying there was an imminent threat to American lives, which has stirred up a controversy in Washington. Some lawmakers responded, criticizing the drone strike, calling it disproportionate and impulsive. Now, as someone who served in Iraq, what is your take on this?
Well, Stephanie, there's a lot of ways to look at this, and I'll start with the most recent. You know, in December, the U.S. Congress, controlled by the Democrats, passed the NDA, that's the National Defense Authorization Act, passed by a vote of 377 to 48. Two of the amendments that the Democrats pulled from that were one amendment that prohibited the president from starting a war with Iran without congressional approval. They pulled that. The other was the 2001 amendment that allowed the president the authority to go after terrorists. So by pulling those, they gave the White House the authority to move forward. Now, second to that is the fact that if we look at before 2011, you know, there were many opportunities where we saw intelligence. We had credible information of attacks that were going to happen and where those terrorists were. We did not act, and we know how that turned out. So when this president has good information, it's credible, it's verified, and we know that there's an enemy attack against U.S. forces, U.S. lives, and our allies, it's an action he has to take, and had he not taken those actions, he would have been further ridiculed for that.
Lastly, what impact does this missile attack have on our allies who are in the region as well?
Well, I think that impact remains to be seen. You know, to now we have no casualties. It was a gesture. It was symbolic. Iran is a society built on honor. You know, very much in that part of the world, it's about, you know, an honor code. So this allowed them to save face, to show that they struck back. This was the base where the drone took off from. So I think right now everyone needs to step back, measure the damage, if any. What are the response that should be taken, and then let's reach out to our allies and have that open discussion.
And we are expecting a statement from the president today. Don Bramer, thank you so much again.
Thanks, Stephanie. Have a good day.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One America News on YouTube, and call your cable provider and kindly demand that One America News is added to your lineup. Call and subscribe today.